Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the second track that's available through the Master's BM Plus program. That is the University and University of Utah partnership with the Canyon School District program. And so we're going to be focusing in this webinar just on the process, the application process for the master's program in relation to the ESL endorsement program. And we're going to be talking about the specifics related to what the expectations of the master's program are. So I'm going to transition over into our PowerPoint. And all right. So in the first webinar, we talked about the first track that's available with the M Plus program, which is the ESL endorsement track. The important thing to know is when we're talking now about those who choose to want to continue beyond the ESL endorsement to the master's program, it is important to just note that there are parallels or overlaps between these two tracks. So essentially you're going to be entering at the same time as the ESL endorsement track, but you will actually have additional assignments and continue for an additional 6 months after the completion of the ESL endorsement. But for the ESL endorsement courses, you'll actually be in the same classes along with the rest of the cohort that's doing the ESL endorsement only. So we talked about in the first webinar who we are as a department. This is a program that's actually sponsored in partnership with Canyons through the University of Utah, their Department of Education, Culture, and Society within the College of Education. Our particular department is very interested in working with educators who are invested in issues of equity and diversity in education and are looking at exploring their own practices and patterns of educational inequality that may be present within their schools or the educational environments in which they work. And so we are particularly interested in those individuals who are, again, trying to apply and transform their practices within the settings that they're in. So one of the things we talked about was when you apply for the M Plus program, the application you can obtain through Beverly Herman in the Department of Equity and Access. Or you can also get the application from your principal. Every principal at the Canyon schools has been provided a copy of that application. And so if you're interested in the program, that would be your first step, is applying for the M Plus program. Sorry, excuse me. So in the application, you will notice that you will be asked to select one of two tracks, either the ESL endorsement track or the Master's MED track. One thing that you need to keep in mind is that if you are at all interested or curious about the master's program, but you haven't definitely decided, then you want to select the master's track. Because that gives us, that's not your application for the master's program. That is simply alerting us at the university to follow up with you to guide you to the application at the University of Utah. And so if there's any possibility that you might be interested in going the master's track, please make sure you are selecting the MED with ESL endorsement track on your application. So as we talked about, there are some requirements from Canyons District about what requirements you as an applicant need to meet in order to apply for the M Plus program in general, whether you're applying for the ESL only track or the master's track. Um, those we've talked about in the last webinar, but we just wanted to reinforce that you need to have at least 2 years of teaching experience, as well as being in an educational position where you have access to ELs, to English learners, because many of the assignments as you go through the program are going to require you to actually go back into either your classroom or educational setting to work directly face-to-face with English learners. So those two are very important. The other is to make sure that you can complete the program in the time frame in which it's available. And so the ESL endorsement portion of the courses run from June 12th to May 10th. And so making sure, and actually I think the time frame is actually June 10th, 2019. I'm just noticing the date change has not been changed in this slide. So the courses actually start June 10th of 2019 and run through May 6th of 2020. At that point, you would continue with your master's courses, finishing up your master's degree in December of 2020. So when you're applying for the master's program, so you've applied to the M Plus program, you've been accepted, right? You begin to start doing your ESL only courses, your ESL endorsement courses. You actually have until August 15th to apply for the master's program officially through the University of Utah. And so here, you will actually see a rough sketch of the way that this is set up. And this is actually this is to supplement the regular schedule that we talked about in the first webinar about the ESL endorsement courses. So along with the ESL endorsement courses that everybody in the cohort takes, if you are signed up for the master's track, you would also then be doing in the fall of 2019 the work that is called an integrative reflection course. Essentially, you are doing an additional level of reflection on prompted questions that you are then going and reflecting on the course material you've had up to that point and doing a deeper level of engagement with the concepts and how it applies to your practice with English learners. That the work for the integrative reflection course is done across the entire coursework of the program, but you don't get credit for that course until fall of 2020. So really, from the time that you start the program in the summer of 2019 to May of 2020, you are actually just involved with the ESL endorsement courses and doing that deeper reflection. The difference really comes in the summer of 2020 when you then transition from just being an M Plus student to actually being engaged with the University of Utah in terms of campus, in terms of faculty. And so in summer of 2020, you're actually then enrolling in 2 courses, one of which is required, which is the Intro to Critical Cultural Studies in Education. And the second one is a course that is offered at the department across a range of topics depending on what faculty are teaching that summer. Most participants in the master's program through the M Plus program typically take their courses during the first summer session that runs from around May 10th to about June 20th. And so that is an important one to keep in mind because we understand that you're teaching through the first few weeks of that summer term. And so it's probably the most intense period for you as a master's student to complete the program. So it's making sure that you're making arrangements to make sure you're creating supports and working with your cohort to be able to get the work completed. Then basically by fall of 2020, you've already done the integrative reflection course. You're simply getting credit for the work you've already done. So all you're doing in the fall is actually completing the comprehensive exam to be able to graduate in December with your degree. Although you would graduate and complete your degree officially in December, assuming you pass your exams, you would then apply for graduation and actually walk in the commencement ceremony the following spring, because the University of Utah only does one graduation ceremony a year, and that is the spring commencement. So I'm going to go through and talk a little bit about the admissions process and how tuition works in relation to the partial subsidies you receive from Canyons District and how this benefits you in terms of the amount you ultimately pay for your master's degree at the University of Utah in comparison to if you were not enrolled in the program. So the deadline for admissions to the University of Utah graduate school for this master's degree is August 15th of 2019. They ask for an area of emphasis. Your emphasis would be the ESL endorsement, and you would be actually applying for admission for spring of 2020. There is a system, an official application system or admission system that the University of Utah uses called Apply Yourself. Everything would go through that system, and those of you that in your application to the M+ program mark that you're interested in pursuing track 2, we actually will follow up, and during the month of June, we'll actually do an overview and preparation for your application. So we provide support in terms of walking you through the required application materials and admission requirements, providing resources and support. And so that's why I keep saying it's important for you to make sure that if you have any interest whatsoever, even if you're just still thinking about it, make sure that you're checking track number 2 for the MED track. So what you'll notice is in the required application materials and admission requirements, you'll notice that there are no requests for a GRE score, or other testing. We essentially, because of that, we put a lot of emphasis on that personal statement and your letters of recommendation in addition to your GPA. So make sure that you are looking at the mission statement of the department, right? And making sure you're integrating that in your personal statement about why you want to do this master's degree. So in terms of cost, what we've done is actually put side by side the cost of a student that just would come into the department and apply for the MED and what they would be paying, and then put alongside that the cost for you as an M+, a member of the M+ program, based on the subsidies that you're receiving from Canyons District. So for your ESL endorsement, the first 3 courses, right, are fully subsidized. And therefore you are saving that amount of money, which is almost $5,000 to start with. Starting in spring, that's when you are officially admitted, right, as a graduate student. And so you begin to pay graduate tuition. In this case, you're getting just a partial subsidy from Canyons, and this is essentially the amount that has been negotiated for Canyons to pay for ESL-only students, that we are instead applying directly towards your tuition subsidy to reduce your tuition that particular semester. The rest of both summer and fall to complete the degree are the amounts that you would be solely responsible for paying, which comes up to $8,872 for the cost of the master's degree. Again, in terms of savings, you're saving a significant amount of money compared to just enrolling to the U and coming on your own. So the cost is something some of you may decide that you want to pay it up front or out of your own pocket. Just know that you can request from the financial aid office or from the finance office a payment plan. It doesn't give you a whole lot of room, but it does give you the ability to be able to break up that tuition per semester into I think it's up to three payments. It could be up to four. So it makes it a little bit more manageable if you're trying to pay for it out of pocket. The other option is to apply for financial aid, and that is through the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. The important thing to know about this is that for this particular program, because it crosses 2 academic years, you'll actually need to apply to 2 different FAFSAs. One is the 2019-20 FAFSA that would cover spring 2020 and summer of 2020. And then you'd have to apply for the 2020 to 2021 FAFSA to cover the last semester of your master's degree in fall of 2020. So that's just important for you to know. The 1920 FAFSA, you can apply anytime for that. The 2021 FAFSA, you can apply beginning in October. So we just provide some information here if you already have existing student loans, or you are wondering in terms of the limits, the borrowing limits. I've provided that information in this slide for your information. And let me, I want to just kind of give us an opportunity to raise some questions and be able to answer those. In our previous webinar, when we've talked to master's students or students in the M+ program that were interested in the master's track, there were several questions that emerged. So I've asked actually Daniel Piper, who's our administrative assistant for the M+ program at the U, to pose those questions, and then I will try to answer those on this webinar so we capture it for those that are listening.
Yeah, so the first question was, where do I obtain the application?
Okay, and that's I think there's 2 parts to that question. The application for the M+ program overall is going to be through Canyons, right? So you will go to Beverly Herman at the Office of Equity and Access, or to your principal at your individual school. If you're talking about the application for the master's degree at the university, that would actually be through a website, which we call the Apply Yourself portal at the University of Utah. And those of you that mark that you're interested in the master's track, we actually will send that information with the link to that Apply Yourself website so that you would begin to complete that application.
And the second question we have, do we need to take the GRE to apply to the master's program?
Yeah, and that's another one that our particular department does not require the graduate record examination, the GRE. We put more emphasis on your personal statement and your letters of recommendation to be able to get a sense of your commitment to issues of equity and diversity that are valued in our department.
And another question is, will an email be sent out so that we know when the informational meeting will be, specifically to help with the support for like mission statements and application materials?
Yes, there are 2 ways in which that will happen. One will be that once you apply to the M+ program, you will be enrolled in what we call an online M Plus headquarters, or the M Plus online headquarters, which is a site on Canvas that will essentially have all the information related to the program, both at the ESL endorsement only as well as for the masters. It'll also include resources, sample personal statements, samples of the website link to the Apply Yourself site, and also frequently asked questions will be posted there, so that if one person has asked a question that is relevant for everybody, you will all get to benefit from receiving the answer that will be posted on that site. We will also send out, for those that marked specifically that they are interested in the master's track of the M Plus program, we will actually also follow up with a direct email to you, informing you about the informational meeting, and providing that will go through in more detail about the application process and providing supports to help you through that application.
Okay, and when should we apply to the U of U in order to start the master's program on time?
The deadline is August 15th, but you can actually start the application I would say you can start at any time, but really you want to start it probably by June, so that you give yourself some time to be able to gather the materials, to write your personal statement, to make sure that you're following up with your potential references. So if you're thinking about applying for the master's, one of the things that I would recommend to you now would be to identify who those references are going to be for you and approach them now, particularly May, before everybody leaves, so that you have their commitment and perhaps are able to get their commitment to getting the letters in by the August 15th deadline. So
Okay, and connected to that, so the decision needs to be made by August 15th to meet the application deadline. If applying for financial aid, will a decision be made by that date, or what is the date to apply for financial aid?
So for financial aid, you would want to make sure that you're applying by October. You have a little bit more time to be able to do the financial aid application than you do the admissions, right? Because financial aid is dependent on you being admitted. So typically August 15th, we are receiving all your applications, and we're reviewing your applications those following 2 weeks. And typically we're making the admissions decisions by September 1st. But so by the time you're applying for financial aid in October, and I believe it's October 1 that those applications open up for you to be, you could simultaneously actually apply for both of those FAFSAs that I talked about, the 2019-20 FAFSA as well as the 2020-21 FAFSA. On those dates. The most critical one to start off with, because it would be paying for your spring tuition, and you want to make sure that that's in place before you registration opens for the spring, which is typically around late November. So you want to make sure that you might want to put on your calendar, right? October 1, apply for FAFSA if you're planning to pursue the master's and using financial aid to pay for it.
Okay, and so excluding the summer semesters, will all of the face-to-face meetings be after school?
Yes, all the face-to-face meetings are scheduled after school, including the ones during the ESL endorsement courses, right? So for the master's program, what we typically do is schedule the courses that we have in the summer. Recognizing that you're still teaching in the month of May, we make sure that those are offered actually after at the end of the school day. So it's usually 4:30 to 7 are usually the times in which our courses meet for face-to-face. So what I would say is when you begin to transition right from the ESL endorsement courses to just the master's courses, we keep that same schedule. And we also can, but at that point, faculty are setting the structure of their courses. So we encourage our faculty to do as much as they can in a hybrid, do their courses in a hybrid mode when that course is going to be particularly appealing to our Canyons teachers. But it's up to the faculty in terms of how they arrange that structure. So one thing that's important to know is then that second summer when you're fully just a master's, taking master's courses, those are actually on campus at the University of Utah for any of those face-to-face meetings. They're no longer on Canyons because the classes are actually not just enrolled with Canyons teachers, but also other master's students that are participating in the department master's program.
Okay, and so knowing that the first set of classes starts in June and July, do you know when teachers should expect to know the dates of those classes?
Yes, we are actually by the end of April. So by the time we have our informational meeting, which I believe is like April 22nd, which is the face-to-face informational meeting, by that time we should know when our face-to-face classes will be for the two summer courses that start off the ESL endorsement. So I will say that in both cases, for both classes, there will only be one or two face-to-face meetings for each class, and those meetings will happen in June. There will be no face-to-face meetings in July. And so on April 22nd, when we have the information meeting, we should be able to provide you the exact dates of those face-to-face meetings in June for those first two courses.
Okay, those are all of the questions.
All right, well, don't hesitate to reach out to us if you need to get more information about any of the things that we've raised, or maybe new questions emerge for you that we did not answer in this webinar. You're also welcome to come to the face-to-face informational meeting where we'll give much more detail, as well as be able to respond directly to with more specifics about the course sequence and the expectations of each course. So Beverly Herman for questions around the Canyons requirements about applications and getting arrangements to make sure that you're in a position to have access to English learners when you enroll for the program, and any questions specifically related to either the M+ program in general or specifically to applying for the master's degree, feel free to reach out to either myself, Veronica Valdez, or Danny Piper. With that, thank you for participating, and hope to see you in the M+ program.